Hello and welcome. I'm Patrick Clore, Head of Customer Insights with GiveSmart by Community Brands, and we are thrilled to have each of you here joining us in our conversation. Today is episode 15 in our Outside the Room fundraising success series, where our sole hope is to inspire each other to continue innovating by examining those who have done it so well up to this point. And we're thrilled to have all of you here in this place with my friends. Sorry, I couldn't resist, because today we are joined by the dynamic duo of Daniel Meyer and Jeff Katz from My Friend's Place, based out of Los Angeles, California, who have graciously given up their time to share their story, which is one that I think any organization, regardless of your location, size, etc., will be able to learn from. Daniel and Jeff, thank you so much to each of you for joining us here today.
Thank you for having us. We're excited to be here.
Thanks so much.
And we are also joined by GiveSmart's own Susanna Crawford, Community Manager, and Don Talisha Smith, our Regional Operations Manager, both deeply experienced fundraising consultants and evangelists to share their thoughts. Susanna, Don Talisha, thanks to you both for being here as well.
Happy to.
Thanks for having me.
So a little bit of process and procedure is always to kick us off. In the chat, we're going to be dropping in some different resources that we wanted to share, where no matter where you might be in your fundraising journey, we're confident can help you accelerate your impact and further the causes that you are working so diligently on. And we'll put those in there, but then we'll also start it off with a quick pulse check just to see, as it stands here today on Thursday, September 24th, how confident are you you'll reach your goals this year? Not so hot, we're making some strides. We'll get there for sure, or we might even pass it. And while folks are weighing in with the poll, Jeff, at a high level, could you share the mission of My Friend's Place and some of the different work that you guys do?
Of course, thank you. And thank you everybody for joining today. So My Friend's Place is a resource center for young people experiencing homelessness. We are located in Los Angeles and serve in a I'd say a normal year, as if that exists anymore, about 1,400 young people ages 12 to 25. We've been doing this work with these youth for about 32 years now, doing everything from basic need essential services, so meal, showers, clothing, employment and education support, mental health care, physical health care, parenting support, and housing case management and emergency referrals for shelter. All of that kind of got turned upside down early this year, as I'm sure many of your organizations also had to pivot when COVID started really hitting the US. And so I'm super proud to say that our team on the program side of things have just really stepped up to continue serving our young people and adults, actually. So we made the decision pretty early on that anybody who came to My Friend's Place looking for resources or support was going to receive that regardless of their age. And so since March, we have remained open every single day. We have been serving meals, giving out masks, providing essential services, and of course, referrals and resources outside of My Friend's Place for support within the community.
That is beyond amazing and awesome that you guys have expanded it and done it. That's just super, super cool stuff. Susanna, on the screen here, we see kind of the results from today, and I know you've been looking at the data side of it for quite some time. So how does kind of the responses that we're seeing here today resonate with you?
Yeah, so this is great. We definitely are seeing that not so hot category go down, and we're getting there going up, which is absolutely fantastic. And we do have data week after week from doing this for about 15 weeks now. We've been looking at this, and we do have a slide to kind of show you that. And what I want to point out specifically here is, if we can go there. Sorry, guys. Thanks so much. So what I want to point out specifically on this chart is the growth of this gray, which is we're getting there, as well as the decrease of the blue, which is that we're not so hot. So that's fantastic. We started with 43% of fundraisers saying that they're not feeling hot about their goals, and that's down about 15%, even more today. And then additionally, 12% when we started were thinking that they were certain they're going to hit or exceed their goals, and that's compared to 21% as of last week. So again, that is huge of a 9% increase. And the reason that we wanted to share this with you guys specifically is because we know what you know, which is that you totally got this. So hopefully it's brings some encouragement.
That is, yeah, no, well said, and great to see just the confidence that folks are having. And speaking of folks who got it, a little bit of place setting for you, my friends. Pun was 100% intended there. In terms of stuff we're going to cover here today, it'll be a lot about how Dan, Jeff, and My Friend's Place really blended fun and educational campaigns in a way truly authentic to the mission that Jeff just shared with us there, as well as how they swiveled 2 virtual and a week-long fundraising campaign. And all 4 of our panelists have agreed to stay at the end for about 10 to 15 minutes of question and answers. So you can send in questions at any time through the chat option that you see on your screen. Don't hesitate to send them early and often, as we'll be compiling throughout the conversation. Anything that we can't get to for whatever reason, we will make sure to include in our follow-up after the fact. And just because I know a lot of folks will ask, we will be sending out a full recording of the call that we'll have today, as well as any materials that might surface. So if you do have to jump off, please don't worry. We will ensure that we get everything over to you guys. So with that, we'll dive right in. And Dr. Alicia, can you start us off with just talking about some of the magnetically authentic things that My Friend's Place has been doing?
Yes, of course. So I love that My Friend's Place did a variety of campaigns, some that were fun and loose, and others that were more serious and educational. So the first example I really want to highlight is this social distance. To start, such a cool play on words. I don't know which one of you came up with this, but you definitely get points for that. So I want to start with the fact that this particular event was hosted back in April. So if we can all take a minute to think about, just where we were, many of us were really just settling into the fact that we weren't going to be seeing our loved ones and gatherings were not going to go as planned this year. But here you were already finding creative ways to engage with your community and just keeping people connected. This variety show and dance party was such a fun way to do that. So Daniel, can you tell us about how you even came up with this idea and what it took to pull off a virtual party?
Yeah, so I know it's super hard to think all the way back to April. Feels like a year ago at this point, but this was about a month after we had our initially scheduled gala was supposed to take place. So, everybody, was sort of in a transitional space. We were starting to figure it out. People were getting more comfortable with Zoom. I think Zoom was still kind of a fun novelty at that time, which it isn't necessarily anymore since we've all sort of settled into it. But we felt that there was this opportunity for a lot of us to get together, to bring our community together, to just see each other. We were so desperate to just see our supporters and give them a chance to see us, and to remind them that everything in the world is crazy, but My Friend's Place, no matter, we're not shutting our doors. We are going to continue serving our youth. So we wanted to sort of, again, sort of remind people that we were still doing the work, and also just connect with them and have a bit of a good time because everything was so crazy. So that was sort of our goals going into it. We reached out to a few of our supporters. So the people you see on the left and right are longtime supporters and members of our Emerging Leadership Council, which is a young professionals community of volunteers and supporters that we have. So Mira is an amazing comedian, so she hosted it, and Ian on the right is a fantastic DJ, and he had already been doing these live DJ sets. So we said, why not just do a dance party virtually? And so, everybody's in their little cell on Zoom, dancing around, having a good time. It was super cute to see my mom really just getting into it. We actually had a dance contest, which shouts out to my mother, she won. And our supporters were just getting way into it. And then we had this amazing performer, Scott Hellman, who's been a supporter for a while, sing a few songs. So we really wanted to bring a lot of different things into it. We wanted to make it kid friendly so that people could share it with their families, as well as include some other stuff that was maybe more catered towards adults who know what our work is, but really focused on just fun connection. You can see it was only $10, so really low barrier entrance fee. And we weren't, really expecting to raise a lot of money off of this, but we actually ended up raising, I think, something like $3,500 just because people were really excited to hear from us at the time. So yeah, it was great. We had a really good time.
That's awesome. I'm glad to hear that during the party, people were, just as engaged as you'd hope they would be. And shout out to your mother for winning. What was the best dance move? I have to ask.
She was doing this she's 72, so she was doing all these moves that she definitely learned back in the 60s. And when Ian started playing some older tunes, she really got into it, and there were fingers pointing all over the place. Maybe some finger guns. She was going for it.
Oh, I love that. That's awesome. That's awesome. So
And it looks like
this
we've had people ask a question that is a good one, and now I'm just thinking about your mom doing finger guns, so I got distracted there. But was there a prize for her, I guess, as the winner? Do you guys offer to people other than just the pride of knowing you were the champion?
That's a great question. And yeah, so that's actually another like really, there was. So we have a social enterprise called the Corner Collective, where as part of our creative arts programming, youth who come here will make all kinds of different artwork, everything from paintings to custom designed shoes to keychains to pottery. I mean, really a pretty broad range of items. And then we sell those to members of our community, and 80% of the proceeds go directly to the young artists. So for this event, we bought a couple pieces from our youth, and we actually mailed them to the winners. We had 4 winners. And this was sort of our first foray into using shipping things to people as a really effective method of engagement. And people really appreciated, receiving a handmade item by one of our youth in the mail. We had some people reach out afterwards to, thank us for it. And I think it's a nice way of creating some kind of connection. Even if you can't share space with a person, you can bring them in other ways. So, first you bring them in with this virtual event, and then you send something as a follow-up to people who are particularly engaged, in this case by dancing. Yeah, people seem to really appreciate that. Yeah.
nice,
That is
nice.
fantastic.
So social distance was a light, fun one, but for your following events, you took more of an educational approach. So
Yeah.
in June, you held 2 powerful panel discussions. I love that you called this a time to listen, because thinking again about the climate at that time, the nation was still very much in a state of unrest following the murder of George Floyd, and we're still in the middle of a pandemic. So Daniel, if I may start with you again, why was it so important for MFP to host this event, and how difficult was it to organize it with so much already going on?
Yeah. I mean, we felt that it was just essential for us to, as people were sort of talking more and more, like you said, just following the murder of George Floyd and the uprisings, there was so much attention that was being turned to certain realities that maybe hadn't been named as clearly previously, particularly the impact of structural oppression and systemic racism. And that's something that is crucial to understanding our work, that it's not a coincidence that I think 60% of the young people that we serve are African American, while 8% of the population of Los Angeles as a whole is African Americans. I mean, there's a huge disproportionate impact of youth homelessness on the Black population in Los Angeles. And we really wanted to create a space for our supporters to listen and to learn. So this was an opportunity for us to, you'll notice that while it says Zoom in the little screenshot there, this was actually not done by Zoom. The panel itself took place on Zoom, but we live streamed it via YouTube. Whereas the previous one was on Zoom to, create an interactive space. This one was really about listening. So, people could ask questions in the comments on YouTube or whatever, but this wasn't about creating, this was not about interacting in the same way. We really wanted to create, like I said, a space for listening. This is that educational side that I think is also really important as a method of engagement. So it's not only do people realize that we are, an organization that has a lot to offer in terms of connection and community, and of course we're offering that to our youth as well, but it's also a core value to us to have these difficult conversations, because we know that there are structural reasons for why there are so many youth experiencing homelessness in Los Angeles and throughout the country. And that structural racism is a huge part of that. So to have this conversation was great. And it also gave us a great opportunity not just to highlight the work that we're doing with one of our panelists, Tony, is our incredible data and impact manager now, but also bring in some of our amazing supporters, such as Chuck Hayward, who's a fantastic screenwriter and a supporter, Wayne Bird and Constantine. So we were able to bring people in, present different perspectives, and create a real dialogue that I think was super impactful and useful for our community of supporters who love what we do, but maybe don't know certain aspects of it. Does that sort of come close to answering the question?
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, I listened to this panel and it was very conscious raising. I mean, they talked about everything from the history of redlining, police brutality, and defunding. I mean, they really got into topics that people tend to stay away from because, let's be honest, they can be very polarizing and controversial. So you touched on this a little bit, but Jeff, if you could speak to this one, how do you have these hard conversations without compromising your mission or losing the support of your most loyal donors?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. And I'm super proud, to work for an organization like My Friend's Place that has always been willing to go there and have what may be edgy conversations. I think what it really informed us doing this and the second panel that I know we're going to talk about in a second was the fact that My Friend's Place has a organizational commitment to what we call JEDI work. So justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. And that is as much internal work, so making sure that our policies and procedures are in line and respectful and equitable, as it is an educational component. So when we decided that we wanted to go ahead and tackle this, and Don Talisha, you're right, this was a really tough time coming just off the heels of what was happening with George Floyd and the news about Breonna Taylor. That thankfully no one in the organization even batted an eye at the fact that we were going to try to tackle this topic. Sometimes we have to have conversations with some supporters of why My Friend's Place is talking about this. And thankfully those conversations were welcome and they were actually really easy to have because, as Dan pointed out, there is such a clear connection in this case between systemic racism and youth homelessness, or in the second panel, homophobia, transphobia, and youth homelessness. So when you're able to provide data, when you're able to show who the young people of My Friend's Place are, it's easy to make a case for having these conversations.
Agreed. So actually, go ahead, Patrick.
No, that is awesome. And just because I know we've had people ask, we did put into the chat a link to the Give Smart campaign where both of these panels you can view. But before we go to the second panel, Dan, you had said something there that I was curious to follow up on, because I think a lot of people who, based upon the mission of their organization, might be wondering, I think hard topics is something that is unique to each group, and obviously you guys picked ones that were directly related to your mission. But as you mentioned, talking about the supporters and some of these partners that you guys, brought into the conversations, because one of the questions I hear all the time is, how do I engage my sponsors? Because it's awkward to ask for a solicitation given what's happening. How did your partners and sponsors and stuff like that, you guys engaged, how did they respond to being a part of this?
Yeah, that's a great point. And actually, I think it leads me to something that I think is a really important part of sort of our goals and planning for these panels, was that these were not fundraising initiatives, right? We were not asking for money. There was no entrance fee to watch these. We didn't ask for sponsorships. And that was really intentional. These were about, we thought of these partially as, part of our mission. This was, integrally related, but also this is an amazing, I think, cultivation opportunity for people who are close to you, who love your work, and maybe have in their own professional or personal lives, intersecting expertise. And I think this is a great way of offering those people a way to have an impact. A lot of people, when they think of, this isn't exactly a volunteer opportunity in the traditional sense, but this, I think, is an example of an engagement or volunteer opportunity for this virtual world, and so I think that this is a great way of offering things to whatever kind of partner it may be. It may be, you have a corporate partner who has an affinity group that you want to reach out to because you're doing something for, let's say Black History Month, and they have, a group of Black employees that, might be able to offer some expertise that intersects with your mission. So it doesn't, these issues like structural racism or structural homophobia, it doesn't, I think, no matter what sector you're in, these are so pervasive in this world that I think that they're really important conversations to have and really great opportunities to learn from and interact with your supporters.
And Dan, if I could just follow up on that, what we actually did with these panels, because this was the first time we've done kind of an education series like this, especially such a more public one, as opposed to having something, you know, smaller at my friend's place, we actually went to some of our longtime partners afterwards, made sure they had the links, and got great response, and have actually kind of used this as a continuing education opportunity. So some of our big corporate partners and sponsors who usually would sponsor our in-person gala have actually used this to share with their employees, with their teams. They've invited my friend's place staff to come in and continue the conversation. So we're actually seeing kind of a deepening impact with some of our longtime supporters, where they're now getting why the bigger conversation needs to happen.
Awesome. So let's talk about part 2, right? Out and Unsheltered. I found this one to be just as informative as part 1, but I really loved how this panel focused more on the work and lived experiences of the panelists. So let's pause there. You talked about, you know, people who are still supporting you. Daniel, how did you select the moderator and panelists for this event?
Yeah, so I think this actually connects a lot to what we were just saying about this being, you know, an opportunity to both cultivate people who are close to you, as well as bring in expertise from, you know, a multitude of different sources. So like our moderator, Carolyn, is, you know, a queer identifying woman, and also like, you know, an executive at Instagram, which is a big corporate partner of ours. So it was a great opportunity to both do some appreciation of a major supporter and offer them an opportunity to do something that was, I think, exciting to her, as well as, you know, again, like from a more like development angle, like there is a cultivation opportunity there, but also like, I think this was a really great opportunity for her to share personal experience and expertise. And so that sort of runs through all of the people that we selected. Dee is a partner at True Colors, which is a partner organization of ours. So working with them was a really great opportunity to, you know, showcase and highlight another partner organization. So, you know, that's cultivation in a different sense. We're not, you know, obviously fundraising from another nonprofit, but we are working with them to do the same kind of work. So it's a great, I think those relationships are super, super important. And also Dee has lived experience of homelessness. So they were able to offer like some amazing insight. Ashley Marie Preston is actually an alumna of my friend's place. And she is, you know, in addition to just being an icon and a fantastic speaker, able to offer a really amazing perspective, as well as, you know, she has a pretty big platform at this point. So it's great there in terms of bringing in even more people. Same with Brian Michael Smith, who's an actor. So, you know, again, just like bringing in people who are, you know, maybe just a fan of Brian's work or Ashley's work, but who then, you know, are going to come and learn something about what we do, as well as the larger issues surrounding it. And then Kayla is one of our absolutely incredible social workers. So we are able to offer a multitude of different perspectives on not just our work, but on the issues that are surrounding it, as well as bring in some pretty amazing partners from different places. And I would just say there also that, you know, it's asking someone to participate in a virtual panel is so much easier than asking them to do something in person. So I think there is a real opportunity right now to reach out to people who, you know, are super, super busy, but are maybe more willing to just, you know, live stream from a spot in their living room that has good lighting, rather than asking them to, like, you know, go out somewhere and do public speaking or whatever you may have asked them to do in a non-COVID affected world. So, you know, while there's difficulties, obviously, right, there is like a silver lining here. I think that, you know, there is some engagement that is really possible and really exciting.
Awesome. So to quote your panelist, Ashley Marie Preston, she said that when we see queer homeless youth, or any vulnerable population for that matter, or if we suspect that they may be engaging in risky behaviors or struggling with mental health, it's better to judge the systems that produce these conditions that they are experiencing, instead of judging the choices they had to make in order to survive. Wow. I mean, I think we can all agree that we can no longer afford to turn a blind eye or be silent about the impacts of systemic oppression. So what advice would you give to other organizations who are now looking to be bold and speak out on these topics, or maybe even recreate something like what you guys were able to do here?
I think, You want to go, Dan?
Oh, Jeff.
So I think what Dan kind of said a minute ago really applies here. Lean into the unique situation that we're all in of having to do things virtually and use it to your advantage. The fact of the matter is we were able to reach far more people who watch this on YouTube than if we had done these panels at my friend's place or even like at a small theater here in Los Angeles. So, you know, Dan did a brilliant job of selecting the right panelists, who some of whom had their own community to pull in and invite. But I think really take advantage of this moment that you can potentially reach people who've never heard of your organization, who just care about the issue or who are curious about the issue, and know that you might only have an hour, but you have an hour to really make an impact. So I think selection of participants is huge, but also it's about being bold. And my friend's place has never shied away from being a little bit bold, but we also saw this moment as an opportunity. We had a year's worth of in-person events and in-person engagement that we had to kind of throw out the window, but we said, we're gonna still make the most of this, and we're gonna figure out how to pivot, and we're gonna figure out how to tap into new communities. And largely driven by Dan's leadership, we've been able to do that. But it takes a team willing to get a little uncomfortable and try some things. And there are great platforms and partnerships out there in the world. So it's about figuring out who wants to stand beside you and help deliver these messages, and then go find the audience that is open to listening.
Great. All right, so the last thing I want to highlight quickly here are these images pulled directly from one of your Instagram posts. Briefly explain to us why this truly is like the most needed content right now and the role it plays in normalizing, you know, therapy, mental health, or just self-care in general.
Yeah, I mean, my friend's place, self-care is, you know, the number one phrase you hear around here. And we've been saying that for years, but I think 2020 has provided everyone an opportunity to understand it in a different way. So, you know, being in some form of quarantine lockdown, having to work from home, having to possibly lose your job, you know, we are all feeling the effects of some really tremendous stress this year. So my friend's place does a beautiful job of supporting young people through their stressful times, but we realized we also need to care for our community right now, because the only reason we've been able to continue serving youth and now adults day after day is the community of support has continued to show up for us. So we wanted to make sure we were paying it back however we could. So we realized we have a really great reach with our social media. And instead of always just plugging my friend's place, we wanted to put some resources out there to help our community hopefully feel connected, feel a little bit more secure with their feelings and the stress that they may be under, and let them know that there are ways to get through this. We've always really been big on trying to normalize mental health care. So we really just, again, saw this as an opportunity to lean into that.
That is awesome. And there was, as we kind of on other questions, there was one that came in. I can't remember if it was yesterday or today we covered it, so just to cover our bases. Somebody had asked if you guys charged admission to the panel discussions. I guess two-part question, so we'll make that the first one is, did you guys charge admission to the panel discussions at all?
No.
And then the second part, which is, you know, did you guys, did people donate, you know, as they were watching, or in terms of I know because the intent wasn't fundraising, but I know you guys mentioned you generated revenue through it. Did you guys find that the people donated while they were watching, after they listened, or just kind of how the donations that came in through it, from a timing perspective, did you guys find any trend, you know, when folks were submitting their gift to you?
Yeah, I think the first part of that is something we were super interested and excited to see, was that even not asking for money, our community was down to give us money, which rocks. And you know, we're super grateful to have a community that really loves and cares about us, and is really down to engage even when, you know, we're trying new things, when the world feels upside down. I also think just like little shout out to GiveSmart there, because I think part of that also is that your platform has a really wonderful way of, like, you know, we did all of our ticketing through GiveSmart, obviously, and there's a really nice way of doing a sort of soft ask that's built in there. So people are reserving tickets for free, but there is like a little window, or not window, excuse me, just a little panel where you can add a donation. That was super popular, and a lot of people did that. So they're registering for the event. They see that it's free, but there's no kind of like aggressive ask. We're not directing people there. It's just there. And I think that a lot of people, when they registered, were like, oh, this is awesome. I love that my friend's place is doing this. Let me throw, you know, and people were donating everything from $5 to someone gave us $1,000 registering for one of these panels. And again, it's not the intention. But I mean, come on, we loved it. You know, it's great to receive some support financially, as well as the other support that we received. Does that sort of answer the question?
Oh, absolutely. I think that's a brilliant point. And I mean, I think what's awesome is doing something that's so core to your mission, and then also having people respond to it, you know, in a way where they were willing to give because of that, I think is just a great reminder, on top of all the other things. So I think 100%. And I know, obviously, you know, from just talking about the revenue side of it, but one of the other things, you know, that when you're not necessarily, the objective isn't to raise money, it's to engage people or just, you know, have these conversations. I know, Talisha, you were excited about some of the data we pulled to kind of showcase, you know, from a results perspective, how that works. So I'll toss it to you here to go over the two different graphs we see up on the screen.
Yeah, so Dan and Jeff did some amazing work with these efforts, and we were curious to take a deeper look at the data for their 2 panel discussions to see how they went about expanding their reach. So on the left, what you're looking at is a heat map of where audience members resided. What's amazing to see is that these discussions went beyond just California, where My Friend's Place is based. These discussions were able to draw audience members who ideally become donors, right, from across the country. And because we are fundraisers and are often thinking about the bottom line, this is really good news. On the right, we ran Google Analytics to find out where people came from. So as we discussed on the previous slide, My Friend's Place does an awesome job with their social media, and we can see these efforts paid off. So through these 3 platforms, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, these accounted for 38% of the overall traffic to their discussion page. So this is exactly why we harp on it so much.
That's great. And I had to, in case anybody else is wondering, I did just, not being a marketer by heart, in case somebody wants to know, direct traffic, which is that 62%, is anybody who went straight to the link. So if there was, you know, a link in an email outreach or on a website, that is where the direct traffic comes, just in case anybody was curious. But, you know, I think that's awesome stuff. And as you mentioned, you guys, you said you had a fun campaign and educational, and then kind of the main one. So Susanna, we'll transition over to you here to discuss this summer festival and really some awesome things that was a true pivot to virtual as a result of COVID-19 that we talked about at the beginning of the conversation here.
Awesome. Thank you, Patrick, so much, and everyone for sharing. That's super valuable information we just went over. I'm going to go through the rest of this a little bit quicker so we can get to Q&A. But this is huge. Summer festival, week long. Dan, can you give us just a layout? What was included in your summer festival, and what did the week consist of?
Totally. So I think just to start, we were thinking, how do we have this, awesome in-person gala that we do every year. It takes place at, a big space in Hollywood. We often have really amazing people who are there, and it's glittery and beautiful. And I'm sure, a lot of people listening have similar events on whatever scale. So, the question became like, okay, how do we take the parts of that we didn't want to try to recreate that, because we know that you can't recreate the glitz and glamour when you're at home, unless you want to spend money like the Emmys just did and have, all kinds of wild stuff. And we didn't want to do that. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to take the emotional components that are so compelling to us and move that into a virtual space. So again, not taking the literal event format, but rather taking out the emotional aspects and transforming them into something else. So we've decided to split it into a few different areas. So the first was, we know that people are coming to our gala for entertainment. They want to see Jack Black or Miley Cyrus do something wild and exclusive and cool. So we said, okay, we need to have some kind of fun celebrity engagement kind of, again, this kind of like fun side. It doesn't necessarily have a ton to do with our day-to-day work, but it does reflect, that we are committed to engaging our community in a constructive and we think beautiful way. And at the same time, we wanted to do something that was more core, showcasing our work, presenting the incredible work that our program staff is doing, and giving people a real concrete reason this is why you want to support us. So we decided to split those into two different events. So if you see on this postcard that we sent out to our supporters, the first was Standing Together, which was a virtual benefit concert. You can see the full lineup over on the right side. And that was, again, we didn't include a lot of information about what we do as an organization there, beyond like the very basic core to our mission stuff. We are assisting youth experiencing homelessness as they work towards self-sufficiency in Los Angeles. So we had all of these artists that you can see. I think it's super important to note that most of these artists, if not, I think maybe 2 of them had been connected to us previously, maybe 3. So again, I think it's really important to note that there is an opportunity to reach out to people who you may not have been super connected to before. But again, it is such an easier ask to ask someone to record something with their iPhone camera and some kind of microphone in their bedroom. That's what like Phoebe Bridgers did, for example, and it's great. And I think that has become pretty normalized as a way of like consuming musical content at this point. So again, the ask is a little bit easier, and you then get connected to some amazing people. So, for example, JoJo, since we did this, we hadn't worked with JoJo before, but we reached out to her, and she turns out loves us. She knew about us, and it has actually continued her engagement beyond her performance at the Summer Festival, and has gone on. So she's doing actually another fundraiser for us right now, which is awesome. And I think, again, like engaging people virtually can be easier, and it's super, super useful down the line. And then the other piece of it was Annette United, which was much more of a virtual gala format, although we didn't try to do like anything live. We didn't include our live auction. We didn't do an ask per se, although we did have like a text to donate running the entire time. And we did include some honorees. And that link is up if you ever feel like watching it. But I think it's super, super important to also note, nothing was live in these 2 events. Everything was pre-recorded, and I like really personally, as a tasting, can't recommend that enough. To spend the money to get it edited professionally and put together by whatever production team. It's not that expensive. I think it costs a few $1,000s, and then live streaming it is super easy, and you can schedule it so that people know when to tune in. But it takes a lot of the logistical headache out of it, and I think actually ends up giving you a little bit more security that the tech is going to work fine because you already have a package. So again, we had these 2 events. One was on the Sunday, the other was on Thursday. Those were our bookend major events. And then through the week, we had each day some kind of workshop or class, or we did a wine tasting, just to maintain engagement throughout the week. And the idea there was that we would reach out to different communities and draw people in who maybe they're not interested in the virtual gala or didn't want to go to the concert, but maybe they love yoga, and so they'll attend a virtual yoga class. The ticketing fees for these workshops during the week were pretty low. The wine tasting was $75, but you were getting 2 bottles of fancy schmancy wine. So, so again, so we had this whole week of engagement, and it was great.
Fantastic. There's so much good stuff there. I mean, we'll jump in a little bit more to each of these classes and those relationships with those people, but I'm going to pass it over to Jeff here. And right here, we're seeing some of the results from a week-long event. Jeff, can you just expand, give some color on what the bullets we're seeing here?
Absolutely. So, as Dan said, this replaced our annual in-person gala. which, you know, let's be fully transparent, the in-person gala would generally bring in more money than we raised with Summer Festival, but our net revenue here of over $180,000 far exceeded what we thought we were going to be able to raise. So, you know, this is nothing but a tremendous success in our book. But also I think it was the new supporters and the new opportunities to connect that has been huge. So we saw our social media numbers absolutely skyrocket. You know, with the artist that Dan was mentioning previously, we really saw some new supporters come on board, and really, I think will be kind of lifelong supporters of My Friend's Place, who continue to support the organization, who are reaching out to their fan base to bring them a little bit closer to us. You know, we've been really fortunate to have some strong celebrity partnerships in the past. And let's be real, you know, a celebrity can really do wonders for your organization in terms of getting your message out there and sharing your mission. So this was, you know, hugely, hugely beneficial. And again, as I mentioned earlier, with leaning into going virtual, this was an opportunity to get more, you know, people in a virtual room to learn about us than if we were just doing our in-person event in Los Angeles, which generally would have 600 people, but you'd have to be local. You'd have to be able to come in person. Whereas here, we know, particularly with the benefit concert, we had people tuning in from all over the world to watch that because they wanted to see their particular favorite artist.
Wow. So you went from 600 people to 3,000 people going virtual.
Yeah, not bad.
Yeah, not too bad at all. And here we're seeing those 4 classes that you guys offered in the middle. And so we're just going to break this down. I just have a few questions on these. And Dan, I'm going to pass it over to you. So the first thing automatically sticks out, drag queen bingo. Super exciting. Wish I knew about that then. Could you tell me a little about how do you set this up? And is there a partnership here? How much did it cost people to join into this? What if someone else wanted to do this? What would it take?
Totally. Yeah, actually, it was so easy. So Drag Queen Bingo is, we've been doing this for a while, you know, in person in the past. There is an organization in LA, or business, I think they're called Legendary Bingo. It's run by a person who goes by the Bingo Boy, and it's just his shtick. He does bingo. He loves bingo. And they have some amazing drag performers who run the bingo, and it's super, super fun. And so our community engagement volunteer manager, I forget her exact title now, had the brilliant idea of like, let's see if they're doing something virtual. So we reached out to them, and of course they are doing virtual drag bingo, and it was over Zoom. It cost $300 to book them, I believe, and no matter where you are, they can do it now. And this sold out actually quite quickly. We charged $25 per person to attend, and it was super, super popular. And people, it was fun. It was an hour. People were tuning in from many of them who we didn't know before. I think people just invited their coworkers, their friends. So, you know, we ended up getting some great engagement from that. We had some great prizes. We got to support some local Black-owned businesses with the prizes that we offered, and we had a great time. So super, super simple. It took almost no logistical coordination, which I, as a, you know, event producer and organizer, loved, because everything else was, you know, super work intensive. So this was great.
Oh, I love it. So fun. And it sounds like you really got to expand your reach here. And then last question I'll ask here is, so you really ran 6 events in 1 week. And I think anyone on the development side can understand, wow, impressive. So just curious, like, any lessons you learned from running 6 events in 1 week? Would you do it again? You know, any takeaways or people who are thinking to kind of plan a week-long event?
Yeah.
You can be honest.
Yeah, I wouldn't do it again in exactly this way, if I'm being honest, because as you said, 6 events is so much, and it was a lot for me as, you know, an event organizer, although I was, you know, so supported. I'm so lucky to have an amazing team. You know, Jeff was with me every step of the way, and, you know, other people on our team here are amazing. Comms associate who did all of the graphic design, which I think looks awesome. But yeah, so I think it was work intensive for me, but that's fine. It's my job. I love it. But I think it was also a big ask of our community, because we, while there were different people from different parts of our community engaging with different events, I do think that we would have seen increased engagement if we had spaced them out more.
Okay.
So as I look towards different ways of doing this model, I think that I would advise, I think doing the two big sort of like our like flagship events, the the benefit concert and the virtual gala that we did, those I think were great, and I think made a lot of sense as sort of offering two different things to two different supporters, and that was where we raised the bulk of our money, and saw the bulk of our engagement. But these smaller events, while they were really nice and kept the engagement going throughout the week, I would have probably spread them out through maybe a month or a couple months, just to give our comms department more of a chance to get the word out, and to make sure everybody knows it's happening.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, right? Like segmenting donors, making sure people aren't overloaded and, or they're getting had enough. Fantastic. Thanks for, your wisdom with that. And here we're going to go a little bit back into those relationships. So the more I started digging into my friend's place, I was like, whoa, like so many awesome names. Miley Cyrus has a recording studio. Hasley's involved. Jeff, curious from a cultivation standpoint, from someone who's maybe, never talked to these celebrities or that, how do you communicate with them? Is it through email? Is it through like their PR people? How do you start to develop these relationships with these people?
Yeah, it's all so individualized, which I think really fits an organization like My Friend's Place. We're a little non-traditional of, how we approach services and how we do everything.
Sure.
So a few different examples, Miley has been an amazing supporter now for about 6 years. She actually, created her foundation, the Happy Hippie Foundation, which is the logo you see on her shirt there, after visiting My Friend's Place for the first time many years ago. So we have a super close relationship with her, and really, on the day-to-day can work with her team and her foundation manager. She is particularly close to our executive director, so they have their own relationship, which is lovely. But largely we work with her foundation manager, and they show up for My Friend's Place all throughout the year in many different ways, including what you see here was from our holiday party in 2019 when she and her family showed up. But then you have someone like Giacomo Giannotti, who was our host for the virtual gala this year, a longtime supporter. He's a star of Grey's Anatomy. Giacomo at this point, texts many of us, like we're super close to him. We don't need to go through his team. So it's really about building that relationship and seeing what somebody's comfortable with. Halsey is another awesome, super, very high profile supporter of My Friend's Place. And we work directly with her two managers. So I think it's the authenticity of the relationship that's going to make the biggest impact. When we go to Giacomo or to Miley or Halsey or any of these other amazing performers you see on the poster, we want to maximize their support for My Friend's Place. So if we're going to make an ask, we want it to make sure it feels authentic. We want it to feel respectful. And I'm always super careful of, I don't want to over ask. A few of them we feel like we can over ask because we know them really well, but you want to just kind of really read the room, if you will, and figure out what makes sense for them. And if you're approaching a new relationship, do a little bit of research and see how have they interacted with nonprofits before. The cool thing about a lot of our celebrity supporters is we're their first nonprofit they've done stuff with. So we got to kind of set the standard with them. But nowadays, everyone has a cause that they care about. So dive into their social media, try to contact their management and figure out, what causes are they passionate about and how do they like to engage? Is it strictly a social media thing? Is it a fundraising? Is it a show up and use my name and celebrity? You just need to kind of ask those questions, and then you can really develop an authentic relationship from there.
That is awesome advice. I love that. Do your research, find out who they're already connected with, how they want to be connected. Those are some great starting points. And we're going to go right here. I mean, Jeff, you told me that you have a background in publishing, so I'm going to pick your brain here. I mean, crazy. We have Entertainment Tonight. We have ABC News, KTLA. This event got some serious publishing. Would you mind just talking a little bit about like how this came about, and if someone is looking to start, PR at this level or even, a local level, how do you get involved and what are the first steps?
Yeah, so a few quick things come to mind. First of all, we have been fortunate that whenever we've done our big in-person gala, we've been able to retain PR support, often either completely pro bono or, as my new favorite phrase, low bono, so the deep discount. So that absolutely helps, because if you're really trying to do a heavy lift, you need some more person power behind it. When it came to the Summer Festival this year, we had an amazing new partner in Lobeline Communications. They came on board and said, we want to help you make this a success. We know that it's important, since you guys are losing your gala, let's do something big. So having their team out there pitching for us was huge. So they helped write the press releases and things like that. But also, you can do all of that internally. You know, there are templates all over the internet of how to write a press release. And again, it's just about getting your mission clear. You know, I'm sure anybody listening to this call right now is passionate about their cause. You just need to get that through in an email, and then figure out who are the people in your local press, who are the people in national press if you want to go big, and just start blasting those emails out to them. It's not hard. I say start local, try to find a friend in the press, and they can sometimes connect you to some other outlets. But when it came to Summer Festival, this definitely exceeded our expectations, the amount of press we got. But, you know, in thinking about it, we all were in a pretty dark news cycle a few months ago, still are on some level. And I think this was an opportunity to share a story that had some heart behind it. And also, again, leaning into the virtual aspect, this was something that anybody could engage with. So while our in-person gala, you know, generally would have a higher ticket price, and certainly, you know, sponsorship levels were pretty high for that. Here's something that, you know, in some cases for $10, you could have joined one of the workshops. And again, you didn't have to even be local. And so that, I think some press particularly jumped on board and wanted to help highlight what was happening. And once again, you can never underestimate the power of having a celebrity involved, which Giacomo was amazing and did so much press for us, as well as JoJo. So again, we knew where we could ask for favors there, and they were willing to support.
Oh, thank you so much. That's so wise. And I know all the Grey's Anatomy fans are loving this right now. Thank you for sharing so much. And let's take a deeper dive into the data behind this engagement that we're talking about. So we were curious to analyze this specific campaign and look at a few different things. So we broke up these charts in two different ways. The first one is the first time someone joined this campaign. And when I say campaign, I mean the GiveSmart site that has all of this, the ticketing and everything. And then the second one is the revenue that got generated. So a few different things to point out. On the left, we can see a steady day-to-day growth rate on the campaign. And that shows us that new donors were being attracted as the week went on. And the campaign really ran from 8/7 to 8/12. So on 8/9, which is the concert day, you can see that it's the largest group of new time users at 19% all came on that concert day, which is very interesting. And on the right, you can see that the revenue doesn't exactly match up to that. So again, it was great to see that the revenue was coming in at a pretty consistent flow. But again, it came not only on that big gala event day, but every day, but you did have a spike in that donation ask when the auction closes. And something even cooler to point out is that, you know, even past that Night United, you're still getting in donations, you're still getting in funds throughout the way. So this week-long event really attracted new donors at different times and made the revenue come in at different times, which is encouraging for a week-long event if people are interested in that.
That is amazing to see. Obviously, I mean, as you guys, Dan and Jeff alluded to, the effort that it took running the multiple things it did. That was great to see. Awesome stuff, Susanna. And before we jump into some of the questions, and I know we fielded the super majority of them kind of throughout the conversation, but a reminder for our upcoming webinar that will take place on October 13th, talking about different holiday fundraising that can be executed virtually, similar to some of the stuff we covered on this call here. So the two questions that really we didn't cover based upon the sections are for Jeff and Dan. So Dan, I think this one is best for you. Well, talking about the wine tasting that you guys did, was the wine tasting in person, or did you send bottles out to people? Kind of how did that particular one work?
Yeah, so we sent, it was a combination of sending bottles out to people and having it available for pickup. We have a local wine bar that's a really great supporter of ours. And so they are right in Hollywood, a couple blocks away, so people could show up there and get a couple bottles of wine. Or if they wanted them delivered, they could have them delivered for, I think, a $20 service fee or something like that.
Yeah, perfect, awesome. And then really, Dan or Jeff, either one of you, somebody had asked, their organization is based in a more rural area, so they don't have a lot of ambassadors in the area, whether it's on the celebrity side or just in general. So, what sort of recommendations would you have for groups that, either are rural, newer, and really just trying to grow their footprint in some of the areas that you guys talked about previously?
Yeah, I think, there are a few ideas that come to mind, and not knowing obviously the specific topic or issue that this organization works with. I think it's, first of all, do some research and find if there's a statewide or even a national or regional kind of collective of organizations, or a bigger kind of advocacy group that you can connect to and find out some other resources and other points of partnership. My friend's place probably 25 years ago helped create the Hollywood Homeless Youth Partnership, or the HIP as we like to call it. And it's now, we have 9 different organizations across Los Angeles that are part of that. So we all harness each other's relationships, person power, trainings, and really also resources. So you can think of it on that level. So are there other things in maybe the big city closest to you, another organization that you can connect to and they could recommend folks to work with? And also, like, when it comes to finding an ambassador who might be a celebrity, it's doing a little bit of that research. So you can Google, celebrities who care about homelessness, for example, and you might get a lot of random articles that aren't exactly accurate. But if you take your time to read through it, you might find, somebody who has a lived experience of homelessness, somebody who has worked with other homeless organizations, and that could be a great place to start. So that way, you're, potentially sending an email or making a phone call to someone who already cares. But again, that would be for the specific issue or cause that you're working toward. But I, just can't recommend enough. Just doing a little bit of research can go a long way. We have some, major donors and celebrity supporters who have never stepped foot at my friend's place. So it doesn't mean that they literally have to come see your organization and be part of it in person. A good development person, a good nonprofit person can make a compelling case over the phone, or now, as we often are doing, over Zoom. So don't discredit yourself just because you might not be able to connect in person.
That is masterfully said. The last question somebody asked to follow up to the wine tasting is, did you guys stream the tasting at all? Yep.
Yeah, it was Zoom. So
okay.
We did the wine tasting by Zoom with the sommelier, our friend Zach, who owns the bar. So actually, Jeff could maybe answer more of what it was like, because I believe Jeff was there and I actually was not there for the wine tasting.
Yeah, it was great. It was, your typical Zoom meeting, but everyone was drinking and relaxed and having fun. I actually, I have a infant at home, and she joined for a minute because I was at home, and that's what she did. So setting up great parenting examples early on. But it actually was really fun to, like, Dan had said all along, connect with some supporters who we hadn't literally seen in a while, but then there were brand new folks that were joining because they either like wine and wanted to have a good time, or we're out of state and we're still able to join in that capacity. So it was really relaxed. And again, I think key to that was Zach, who is the owner of Tabula Rasa, our wine partner, does a brilliant job at a wine tasting. So the fact that we weren't in person really made no difference. Everyone still really enjoyed themselves.
Yeah, and I just want to jump there quick with one last thing about that, which is, restaurants are obviously really hurting right now, more so or less so depending on where in the country you are. But so we normally, we would ask for something like this for the wine to be donated. In this situation, we actually purchased the wine at, the cost that Zach had paid for it. So at least he wasn't able to do the straight donation, but he wasn't losing any money as well, and was getting good press, or not press exactly, but it was a good opportunity for him to, reach out to new communities. And lastly, we offered this as a cultivation opportunity for our board members. So they could, if they had other friends who, had some money or were interested in our organization, they were able to send some wine over to them, and then tune them in. And we did have a little bit of time to, on the Zoom call. I think Jeff said some lovely things about us. So just, again, a cultivation opportunity for people who already love you.
Yeah, no, that is awesome. And I know we're right at the top of the hour, so we could go on for days, but truly, Dan and Jeff, I mean, I think more than anything else, thanks for joining, and congratulations on the work you guys did. I think this is awesome. And I know we've had a lot of great comments of people already learning things. So truly, thanks for giving us the opportunity to share it today.
Thank you guys, and good luck to everybody out there listening, trying to figure out how to navigate this. It is possible, and we wish you lots of luck.
Thanks so much for having us.
Absolutely. Susanna, Don, Felicia, thanks to both of you as well. And really thanks to all of you guys for joining, not just today, but all of the episodes throughout our Outside the Room series. It's been our honor to share the amazing stories, such as what Dan and Jeff here did. And truly, we hope that it continues to inspire. So we're here in your corner, and we know that you too can emulate all of the success that these amazing nonprofits have had. They were gritty, creative, and willing to fail. And I'm thrilled to be able to do it, and can't wait to share all of your successes in the upcoming days. So thanks again for joining, and have a great rest of the day.